We'd like to introduce Bruce Embrey, who co-chairs the Manzanar Committee with Jenny Chamori. Thank you, Bruce, for co-sponsoring the Arnold Mayetta Manzanar Pilgrimage Grant, now in its 5th year. The Manzanar Committee will host the 56th annual Manzanar Pilgrimage on Saturday, April the 26th, 2025. We welcome Bruce back every year to invite you to the Manzanar Pilgrimage on the last Saturday of April. Bruce Embrey.
Thank you, Phyllis. I just want to begin by recognizing that May has come to the pilgrimage, so none of you have any excuse. She was there last year. We got media over there. They were so excited to meet her and interview her, so you have no excuse. And if you ever feel down and disturbed by what's going on today, just look at these two young women and they're speaking so that you can gain some sense of optimism and confidence that we're going to endure this, just like our families endured camp so many years ago. It's always an honor to be here. It's always an honor to be talking about this great memorial. And we have to say the replica of the Ireto from Manzanar has always been something that makes us proud. But I think monuments like the VJAMM or sites like Manzanar National Historic Site have assumed more importance this year than ever before. The efforts to erase our history, the heroism of the 442nd 100th Battalion or the Military Intelligence Service, those efforts, not just the Nisei soldiers, but the code talkers from the Navajo and Cheyenne nations, or the heroic efforts of all the soldiers that gave their lives to preserve democracy. The erasure of our history and the history of all those who have contributed to the democracy and to the preservation of the ideals of this country should never be erased. But this erasure is not just insulting, it's dangerous. It's dangerous because narratives matter. And the founders of our committee knew that our story was too vital to leave to a paragraph or two in history books. They knew that while as important as a government apology was, and the modicum of reparations that our community received in 1988, that was not enough, because it's not sufficient to simply apologize to our community for the injustices that they endured. Our story is not some isolated mistake or aberration in American history. The founders of the Manzanar Committee, which included my mother, Sue Kunitomi Embrey, argued that the forced removal is a cautionary tale that exposed the dangers to our nation when racists and xenophobes are allowed to trample on our constitutional rights for their personal gain. Our history, our story, unfortunately, is completely intertwined with the events of today. The very law that was used to incarcerate us, the Alien Enemies Act, is being used to deport legal residents like Mr. Abrego Garcia, and being sent, as Phyllis said, to a notorious prison camp, a gulag in a distant El Salvador. But just as dangerous is the use of the McCarran-Walter Act, the 1952 Immigration and Nationality Act, that was written by the same people that drafted the Executive Order 9066. This law is now being used legally to detain and silence legal residents like Mahmoud Khalil. The detention of Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian graduate student under this law, should chill us all to the bone. Like the Alien Enemies Act, this is an outdated, repressive, and thoroughly undemocratic law. This law was so repressive during the McCarthy period that even President Truman vetoed it. But the anti-Semitic and racist senator from Nevada, Walter McCorn, was definitely powerful enough to override that veto, and that law was passed and remains on the books. I just want to say that our relationship with VJAMM, the Manzanar Committee's relationship with VJAMM, goes way back. And it goes back because there were constant efforts by the survivors of Manzanar to fight for and demand justice. And that didn't just start in 1969 with our first pilgrimage. It started much before that. It started immediately. It started during camp, but it also started immediately after camp when Arnold Maeda's sister-in-law and my mother and famous sculptor Isamu Noguchi actually came together to form a group, Nisei Progressives, to fight against this very law. They lobbied against this very law because of its restrictive and xenophobic character. So I just want to say that our history is intertwined. And I think it's so important to have monuments like this that make us remember what happened, but that tell the truth, that actually capture the truth of what happened through the quotes that are written emblazoned on this granite stone. But I don't think it's enough for us to try and restore what America has been. We have to reimagine what America can be. We have to reimagine what democracy really looks like. And it's not enough to simply say, stop what Trump is doing, what the Trump administration is doing. We won't just demand that habeas corpus and the right to a hearing be adhered to. We have to erase the racist and xenophobic laws that make this possible. We have to overturn the Alien Enemy Act, and we have to pass the Neighbors Not Enemies bill that is in before Congress. We have to eliminate unjust immigration laws. We have to erase the unjust immigration laws like the immigration law from 1952. This is what we must strive for. We have to reimagine what kind of America we want to live in, one that actually lives up to the promise of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. That is what we need to do. And that is why we return to Manzanar. We return to Manzanar to remember our people, our community. But we also return to Manzanar to say it's not enough for the government to apologize to the Japanese American community. The United States has to take into account its entire legacy, 400 years of white supremacy and xenophobia, that we stand in solidarity with the African American community and demand reparations for the Black community. We demand that the land back movement, that land that belongs to the indigenous peoples of this country, be returned and be preserved. That is why we return to Manzanar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bruce. We'd like to introduce Miya Iwataki, an activist and member of the, can you hear me? Of the Little Tokyo Historical Society, Nikkei Progressives, and Nikkei for Civil Rights and Redress Reparations Committee. She's also a poet and impressed Suzanne Thompson with her poetry reading at Isabel Jurado's installation as Los Angeles City Council member. We were inspired to invite Miya to speak at today's VJAMM commemoration. Miya Iwataki.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay. You know, these monuments memorializing our history take on a heightened significance in today's anti-DEI environment and the administration's efforts to erase our histories. And I'm going to say a few words about JA and Black reparations and honoring our history. In 1981, Issei and Nisei stood up, broke a 40-year silence, and testified at the Presidential Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians. Their stories exposed a history hidden from us, educated the entire Sansei generation, and put a human face on the Japanese-American concentration camp experience for the world. We won reparations. Congressman John Conyers introduced H.R. 40 to establish a commission on Black reparations modeled after the commission. It took the murder of George Floyd, and 30 years later, the Congress finally had a hearing on H.R. 40. 300 testimonies were provided by Japanese American people. That's solidarity. In California, AB 3121 established a task force on African American reparations based on H.R. 40 and the commission. Don Tamaki became the Japanese American member of the task force. Nikkei progressives, by the way, testified both at the federal and the California hearings. And just as Congressman Mervyn Dimely and the Congressional Black Caucus worked tirelessly for Japanese American redress, Nikkei progressives and NCRR are working with Black reparations organizations on both legislative campaigns. Japanese American and Black solidarity has deepened through sharing our histories together. NP hosted Black reparations, immigrant rights, Korean and Palestinian organizational allies on 2 buses to Manzanar and to the Manzanar pilgrimage. And we shared our history, honored our ancestry together, and talked reparations with indigenous land back movement tribes up there, building solidarity. That's the only way we're going to get by. We did a mini pilgrimage to Tulsa on the 103rd commemoration of Black Wall Street race massacre of 1921. How many of you are familiar with that? Wow, great. It was a learning experience for me. The Oklahoma Militia and National Guard firebombed homes, shooting the Black families as they fled their burning homes. Planes came by and bombed the area of Greenwood to the ground. The survivors were rounded up, sent to fairgrounds, and housed in animal stalls. Sound familiar? We saw the windowless brick buildings with that they were moved into and forced to throw bodies of their deceased neighbors and family into giant incinerators and to throw away the ashes to try to cover up the crime. Those were called concentration camps. And today, there are 2 survivors, 110 years old, still seeking reparations. But reparations is more than a check. It's exposing the truth. It's honoring and preserving our history, just as VJAMM has done today. It's about rebuilding and safeguarding our communities, especially our little Tokyos, which embody the legacy of our Japanese American community. And this was a poem that I was able to read at the swearing-in ceremony of Councilwoman Isabel Horado. In 1886, a Japanese seaman named Hamanosuke Shigeta jumped ship, came to Los Angeles, and opened up the first business, Kame Cafe. Bunkado resides in that very spot, and a Little Tokyo Historical Society has put, a bronze monument and a street sign acknowledging that. Once there were 43 little Tokyos, Japantowns, Nihonmachis. Once there were 43. Today, only 3 historic Japantowns survived. Once, Little Tokyo was extended family, weddings, anniversaries, funerals, Chanameshi dinners at Far East Cafe and San Kolo. Once, mom and pop shops dotted every block with enticing whiffs of grilled teriyaki and steaming bowls of chashu udon and wispy tendrils of scented incense wafting through Buddhist temples. Once, children's laughter was heard while scampering through streets under watchful eyes of smiling shop owners who slipped them sweet treats. Once, Little Tokyo was our cultural home, the heart of the Japanese American community. And the U.S. denied us citizenship. California denied land ownership. LA covenants restricted our housing. World War II, 120,000 seized, family separated, imprisoned, barbed wire armed guard concentration camps, and Little Tokyo was left a ghost town with a brief revival for Bronzeville. We rebuilt our families, our lives with mutual support, brick and mortar. And LA Civic Center decided to expand urban removal, encroaching, displacing hundreds, fresh out of camp, history repeating itself. Another Civic Center expansion, 1970s, but resistance, a community united, standing up, standing together, fighting evictions, demanding concessions, compassion. This unity, fighting spirit, and hope, a reawakening of Issei pioneer grit, igniting the community to stand even stronger to win justice and reparations, to redress the wrongs of camp. We are Little Tokyo. We are home of the first East-West players, visual communications, Japanese American National Museum, birthplace of the shabu shabu restaurant, the California roll, fortune cookies, frozen fish sticks, home of the oldest ramen shop in the country. We are Dodger Blue and Shohei murals. We are Nisei Week parades, Oshogatsu, Autumn Tanabata festivals. We honor our ancestors in celebration, story, art, Japanese gardens. Despite cold hearts and cold storage, graffiti and gentrification, we gain strength as cohorts of a shared struggle from Chinatown to Cambodia Town, from Echo Park to Lemert Park, fighting for survival from the sledgehammer of gentrification, displacement, outside developers, rising rents. We are the cultural keepers of our neighborhood. We share this call to save our communities, our history, our legacy, our cultural soul, to save Little Tokyo. Once we were 43. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miya. And to close the VJAMM commemoration of 2025, Suzanne Thompson.
We're running really late, so I'm going to make this really fast. A couple of things that I wanted to, first of all, is thank all of our participants, Dan, Alvin, Ruth Galanter, Tracy Park, Doug, and of course, May and Robert, and our MCs, Phyllis and Jennifer and Alice for speaking, and Brian for speaking. And all of these quotes are here on the monument. And thank you so much and Brian as well. Okay, so the VJAMM is built, and you wonder, where's the money going? What do we need money for? Well, as was mentioned before, the Arnold Almeida grant recipients, we had 2 this year, so that was $2,000, and we upped the grant from $500 to $1,000. So please help us spread that, because we need applicants. And if you have any organizations that we can reach out to send them information, please let us know. And we thank the Manzanar Committee for partnering with us on that. It's really great. So some of the outreach that we have been doing is to the Abercrombie Festival. We supported the Bronzeville play that Dan mentioned, and the baseball project, and lots of things. And with Alvin and Santa Monica, which I'm a Santa Monica person too. So if you have any friends in Malibu that we need to reach out to, please see Phyllis or myself or anybody in the committee, because we're really happy to see people from Santa Monica, because this is not just about Venice. It's about Venice, Santa Monica, Malibu, and us. It's about us. So what are we going to do what are we going to do? Stand up and fight back, right? And we'll see you at Hamasushi tonight from 5 to 7, 10% of the, 5 to 9 at Hamasushi in the Circle in Venice. They give us 10% of the proceeds. And they're actually, Hamasushi, thank you so much to John and Esther Chang. they're our major donor. They've given over $36,000 toward this monument in the last 8 years, right? And so we really appreciate the local businesses. So please patronize Hamasushi. And when you go there, tell them that VJAMM sent you.